Greetings and welcome back to another edition of Rob Riffs. Today we're going to be taking a look at a particular era that I kind of still find as a golden era in alternative slash modern rock music. And this is a program where we take on music and discuss music that ranges from late 70s punk, don't do a lot of that, to 80s new wave and certainly the new romantic movement of the 80s, and then which all kind of blended in, swerved into what some people call alternative, which turned into, was called modern rock, certainly in the 90s. We look at some electronic music and then modern indie. Specifically, I like shoegaze and dream pop. So we'll take a look at some of that and some albums, in fact, right up to date, released within the last week or two. But today, I wanted to take a look at, compare a couple of albums, and maybe put a belt on one of them. After this is over, I'll have a grading scale, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and we'll see who comes out on top, and where they can march on and maybe face another group, comparing albums. But we're looking at, today we're going to take a look at, looking at that era, 1991, 92, 1992, going to take a look at the B52'S Good Stuff, 1991, the Fixx's Inc., two bands that really personality-wise coming from two different angles, and they land at two different spots, in their careers and their approaches and their personas, images, I guess, if you will. So what we do here is kind of the grading. My grading scale is based on from 1 to 5. 1 is what I call, do you think I'm sexy? Bad. Right? Number 1. Number 2 is unsatisfactory. Number 3 is average. Or 2.5 is average. 3 is okay. 3.5 is pretty decent. 4 is solid. 4.5 is like outstanding. I mean, you're on the mountains. You can see the mountaintop at 4.5, and 5, you are at the top, and it's just perfection, excellence. But I grade hard, and that doesn't happen very often, right? That doesn't happen very often. I think at one juncture today, though, we do have one song that I think gets close to that, but more on that a little later. I'm going to take a look at first Good Stuff, right? B52'S Good Stuff. B52's were a band that put out their first general market album in the summer of 1979. And we're looking at 1992 here, so 13 years later, this was their 6th album. They're averaging an album every couple of years. And like I said, they were releasing music to the general public for quite some time. Their last album prior to this was Cosmic Thing in 1989. And the band, especially Cindy Wilson, were dealing with the death of Ricky Wilson, because Ricky was Cindy's brother. He died in 1985 of AIDS. And so that might have slowed down the process of putting out maybe an extra album in there. But off of the album we're taking a look at here, Good Stuff, they were nominated. They were nominated for a Grammy for the Best Alternative Album of the year. As for the band, you could say that, and then there were 3. They were down to 3. During this record. The album, my place there, the album did not include Ricky's sister, did not include Ricky's sister Cindy. I apologize for that. She, of course, had been dealing with Ricky's death, as I said, for some time. The band now consisted of Fred Schneider on vocals, Kate Pearson on vocals, and Keith Strickland. Very important, integral part of this group. Keith was the drummer. He continues with those duties, but he now picks up even before this album, he had been playing guitar. Picked up the duties of guitar even on Cosmic Thing, the album Cosmic Thing. But does a fine job. Does a fine job, as I'll indicate here. We like to use the word over and underrated. I think certainly in the annals of the B52's, the guy who did not get the ink. Rightly so. Kate Pearson, Cindy Wilson, Fred Schneider do a fantastic job with the vocals and keyboards and performances. But Keith Strickland, a guy I respect. That's for sure. The album actually made it to 16 on the Billboard album charts, and it probably too, in no small part, was carried along with its predecessor, Cosmic Thing, big album for the B52's in 1989. This album here, although not a blockbuster as Cosmic Thing was, it did have several songs make the airwaves of alternative radio or modern rock radio. It was released in June of 1992, June 23rd to be exact. Probably a mixture of alternative, modern rock, and some pop. Now I have these digitally. So I don't have the album covers to show you. Although I can explain. I think I'd give you some kind of a reasonable facsimile of what the albums might look like. The Fixx's ink, which I'm going to get to momentarily, is pretty simple. But this one here, beige cover, says Good Stuff on it. They're kind of standing in waist-deep water. Looks like they're in waist-deep water. And it looks like they're handling divining tools. Looks like Fred even has some kind of crystal. Alright, so go figure. Don't know. Let's take a look at this record here, the analysis of it. The first song is entitled Tell It Like It Is. Good timely guitar from Keith. Fred and Kate make kind of trade-off vocals very nicely. That often happened in B52 songs, even when Cindy was on board. I gave this song a 3.0. I thought it was okay. It was okay. Then you had Hot Pants Explosion. Really good guitar riffs by Keith in here. Fred is the main that does the main vocals here. No one quite approaches vocals as Fred does. Almost comic, right? But he does it so well. Fred does the main vocals here. This was a single release, almost a year after the record was out in May of 1993. Again, it's okay. Okay song. Then you got the title track, Good Stuff. This actually reaches number 28 on the charts. Stays on for 13 weeks, I think it was. Fred and Kate, the traditional B52 trade-off vocals here, sounding good as they usually did, doing that. In fact, this single here was actually released, I think, like 3 days before the actual album came out. Fairly solid, a decent song. I think what really propels it is a good refrain out of the stanza into the chorus, really catchy. Fourth song is Revolution Earth. Revolution Earth, third single released from the album in February of 1993. No question, there's no question for me. This is one of the, if you ask me, what are the top B52 songs, this would be my top three. Right up there with Song for a Future Generation and Rome, right? Nice guitar lead by Strickland coming out of the second and third stanza. Very brief, but crunchy, kind of punchy. Nice musical bridge. Kate Pearson does the vocals in this. Sounds fantastic. She sounds fantastic. I said earlier, we get close to a 5 here. Revolution Earth, I just really like that song. I got this here as outstanding. All right, outstanding song. Followed up by kind of a series here of really solid to outstanding songs here. Dreamland. Dreamland, kind of a dreamy song. Clocks in at 7.5 minutes, kind of long for the B52's. Again, some nice guitar sounds, good atmospherics by Keith Strickland. Kind of provides the musical backdrop to the song, and I think this is at least a solid song, Dreamland. That's followed up by Is That Yo, Modine. Right, good, bouncy song. I think this was their second release. Came out in August of '92. Again, solid song. Good, solid song. The World's Green Laughter. The World's Green Laughter. Really no vocals in it. Just a lot of like jungle sounds and calls in the background. This is a Keith Strickland song. I'm thinking, making a connection to, the jungle sounds to the title song, The World's Green Laughter. So maybe some kind of cryptic environmental theme here. And the B52's were not overt politically, but they did, again, cryptically, if I can use that word again, did touch on some environmental themes, but it wasn't overt, it wasn't in a party style way, right? B52's were a party band, fun band, in a good humored way, right? Next song, again, you have to look at it from the orbit of the B52's, The Vision of a Kiss, right? Vision of a Kiss would be, maybe a sop to the Harry Met Sally type of theme, right? One of the common refrains in this is, I cannot wait until the 12th of never. I have the vision of a kiss, right? That's a common refrain in the song. Fun song. It's okay. Certainly not bad, right? Better than average. And then there's Breezin'. Breezin', kind of another relational song in B52 style. It could be about a one-to-one relationship. I'm thinking also it could be about global harmony. This was a year after the Cold War ended. Who knows? I'm thinking, okay. It's an okay song, better than average. Then the album ends up with Bad Influence. Strickland gets a really good snare sound in this. Again, Keith originally the drummer to begin with. Veteran drummer. A really good snare sound in this that serves to, I think, propel the song along. I think this song here is a fairly decent song. So, there's the B52's Good Stuff. Now we come to the Fixx. And this was the Fixx's sixth album as well. They always had some elements of pop rock, but they were always on the side of the ledger that would render them as new wave, right? Which makes them eligible for my Riffs programs. They were always, I felt, certainly a part of that new wave invasion that was kind of raging between roughly 1981, safely to say 81 to 83, but probably started late 70s, kind of starts filtering out in the mid 80s. But the first release was in 1982. That was Shuttered Room. Perhaps their biggest album was Reach the Beach. was Reach the Beach in '83, which spawned a couple of fairly big hits for them. Saved by Zero. One Thing Leads to Another, probably their biggest hit. Right? Fidelity Bank even went as far as airing a commercial featuring that song. So you know when that happens, you got you had a fairly big hit, right? Here we have what was, for all intents and purposes, the last album from their classic period. They've been stringing albums along from '82, Shuttered Room, up to this point in 1991. The album cover, basic white album, says at the top, the Fixx, in black at the bottom, ink, with, in the middle of all the white, a little ink bottle tipped over and spilling out just a bunch of numbers. And I had to figure out, sorry, what the significance of the numbers are, but kind of reminiscent or symbolic, emblematic of the Fixx, right? Not a lot of bombast with them. But this is, like I said, this was kind of the last of the string of albums, and they would not put another album out after this until 1998, and they would put out 3 subsequent albums after that as well. And generally, always the same cast of characters. I think the first album, there was a different bass player on Shuttered Room, and somewhere in the Reach the Beach, the second album, they changed bass players, and from that time period up, you know, even through past Ink, when they reformed again, the same band. So this album did not generate a lot of excitement. Didn't generate a lot of excitement. Certainly not from the music press. But it also didn't really crack the top 100 on Billboard either, as the earlier albums did. Again, like I said, same cast of characters that had been together since Reach the Beach, and really the only change up until that point had been with bass. Speaking of which, on this album, Dan Brown is on bass, Cy Kernan on vocals, familiar voice of the Fixx, Rupert Grinnell on keyboards, Jamie West Oram on guitar, and Adam Woods on the drums. Outside of Brown, these guys were all originals. Several were involved in this particular production, as I guess as they were always, right? There wasn't really anyone who was, you never looked at a Fixx album and saw produced by one person. All these guys were involved. But Rupert Hine, and some of you might remember him from Rush fame. Rupert Hine, a lot of work with Rush. Hine was involved in most of the productions until he wasn't involved with the production of React, and I think the 1989 album before this. He wasn't involved in that, but he returns, and he gets involved in this record here. The album was released in February of 1991. Let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at the analysis of this. The first song is titled All Is Fair. Again, kind of like the way I graded the first song on the B52'S Good Stuff. It's okay. It's okay. And then the next song is the single that was released off this album, How Much Is Enough. This makes it to 35 on the Billboard charts. Does fairly well on the modern rock charts. Makes it to number 10. And I, too, thought this was a pretty decent song. No One Has to Cry. No One Has to Cry. The Fixx, kind of like the B52's, were political and socially conscious. If you like that sort of stuff. I do not think they were partisan in any sense. And early on, you could see they were maybe taking on some Cold War themes. I'm thinking Stand or Fall, the hit off of their Shuttered Room album, their debut album, certainly does that. But as in the last two songs here, which I'll get to in a minute, you have some social concerns too. And I thought this song here, No One Has to Cry, I thought this was a fairly solid song. Crucified, good catchy chorus, and Crucified, again, another good solid song. Falling in Love, yeah, it's okay. Falling in Love's okay. Shut It Out, I think some of Jamie West Orum's um, guitar riffs here are a little reminiscent of something you'd see on or hear on Robert Plant's Pictures at 11. But we don't do classic rock here. You have to listen to that for yourself. I'm thinking here, again, fairly decent song, right? Fairly decent song. Still Around, Rupert Grunwell. Rupert Grunwell's keyboard kind of drives the mood there for me. But it's, again, in typical Fixx fashion, not overt, right? Not overt. Nothing ever really was with the Fixx. Just good basic coloring there by Grinnell. And fairly decent song. Fairly decent song. All the Best Things. Line in the song, all the best things are for free. And to me, there's not ever a long leap to a major theme of this particular group here, considering they generally all contributed to the songwriting. And it's anti-materialism. There's always a thread of anti-materialism, anti-power. I think you see some of that here. And it's an okay song. It's okay. Yesterday, Today is next. Good guitar tones here by Jamie West Orum. I think it's a decent song. One Jungle, good atmospherics again by West Orum. And again, another decent song. Climb the Hill, it seems to me like an anti-power theme here, maybe a touch of anti-nationalism and some anti-materialism, right? It's okay. They did add these themes, like I said, without sounding preachy and condescending, and I suppose I do get the sense of care from these guys. Certainly not an angry spirit that you get from many other so-called do-gooders, condescending types of attitudes. It's an okay song. It's okay. And then the album ends up with Made No Plans. Made No Plans. And again, almost under the waterline here. Some really good guitar work by West Orum. And if you listen carefully, you can pick up some of West Orum's technical prowess as well. I think a fairly, again, decent song. So there you have it. One band 3 years after their Signal release, the B52's, arguably hitting the studio with still some momentum. The other nearing the end of their run, where they made their name, interspersed with some changes at the helm of production, only to have Mr. Rupert Heim return to the controls, and a good record that he oversaw. Now, I had mentioned my tabulations earlier that I calculate, and kind of ended up here with a razor. This was razor thin close as I tabulated these up. Both of these albums fell in the certainly in the decent category or close to it. Good Stuff kind of shook out for me at 3.5, right at decent, and Ink 3.4. He couldn't get any closer to a draw, right? 3.4, right? Very, very close. So if you haven't heard these, I guess Good Stuff will move on. We'll have that, that theme of the early 90s. We'll have to maybe pick out an album to in the future here to go up against that. See if we can take the belt from the B52'S. But if you've not heard these albums, then I recommend you check them out. You check them out. Two very different bands. I didn't do this on purpose, but as I was analyzing these, I thought these are just two very different bands, and they certainly had their own sounds and styles, each coming to the table with very different personas, right? The B52'S, probably the ultimate party group, right? The ultimate party group. The Fixx, more on the somber side, more on the somber, serious side, but without being pretentious. So coming up next on Rob Riffs, I think I'm going to look to pick two albums considered to be maybe the best by whoever I pick. So if I was going to do that today with the B52'S and the Fixx, it would probably be Cosmic Thing versus Reach the Beach, right? But I'm not going to do those two groups. Not so soon. So until next time, be tremendous. Bye.